An active winter pattern is setting up for us across the states over the next 2 to 3 weeks. The month of December specifically is showing some very cold signals for the east. And we need to talk about what's going on with our MJO cycle because we could be entering phase 7 and 8 as we get into December, and this is a very cold phase for the states. It's November 1st, 2025. Let's get into the weather updates. All right, there's a lot to talk about, but I do just want to start off with our updated globals. Here is the latest GFS. We're just going to push forward in time and see what the latest 00Z is giving us. Clearly, right now, we have some pretty chilly temps that have settled into the Ohio Valley, and we have that moisture moving out of the northeast. We also have a storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest, and this is going to be a little bit of a headache for you out west. We're going to get some strong winds, cold low elevation rain, and some snow potentially up in the northern Sierra Nevada and Cascades. By the way, I upload these videos every single morning, and then after I upload them, I get on live to answer any questions you may have. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this type of content. Back to the video. Here we go, getting into this weekend, a little bit of a low pressure system developing down into the Gulf. This is going to try to make its way up the East Coast, and we still have that funnel of moisture into the Pacific Northwest, pushing a little bit farther into early next week, Monday, Tuesday. Here's our jet stream up here to the north. We do have a little bit of snow now moving into the northern Rockies, although most of the country looks very dry at the beginning of next week. Moving into next Wednesday and Thursday, our jet stream begins to dip a little bit. This could bring some flurries into New England. We're gonna have some well below average air sinking in out there, and here we go again, another storm system for the Northwest, not even the Pacific Northwest. This is going to be pushing down into California. We may even get some rainfall out into Nevada and Utah. Now, as we get into Friday, here's where a lot of people will be paying attention. The American model does think our polar jet will start to collapse and pull some cold air next weekend into the plains that will eventually make its way out east. And along with that, we could have a frontal boundary setting up. This could be a little bit of severe weather, and we could see some snow falling in the upper Midwest. So much more active pattern, and we continue to see these storm systems slamming the Northwest. So here we go into Friday, Saturday. There's all that moisture and potentially, like I said, a severe threat pushing out east, cold air sinking back into the plains, and all of this moisture continuing to funnel into the Northwest and into the northern Rockies. This is going to be some good snow potentially for portions of Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. And as we get into the end of next weekend, we could see a pretty big snowstorm for potentially Minneapolis, Milwaukee, portions of the Dakotas. I spoke about this last video. The Euro doesn't completely agree with this. The Euro does see this storm system, but keeps it a little bit farther to the north, and the American model likes to bring this system north and south with each new run. So this is still 180 plus hours out. We're watching it closely though because it's continuing to show up on the models. And now I'm going to move a little bit quicker because after this, obviously the confidence goes down a little bit. We're talking about 200 plus hours. But this system would potentially, as we get into November 9th, November 10th, move off into the northeast, bringing some snow for New England and a lot of rainfall for the mid-Atlantic. While another system is moving into the northwest and potentially as we get into the 10th and 11th, wants to bring a major snowstorm into the northern plains and upper Midwest. This would be feet of snow, although as I said, now we're getting late into the model. We'll compare the European to this in just a second, but here we go as we get into the middle to end of the second week of November. Sinking air here, we could have feels like temperatures down into the 30s in northern Texas if this were to happen. And again, big snow for a lot of major cities out here if we were to see this play out like this. And notice what's happening out ahead of this cold air, another frontal boundary, potentially more severe weather. We haven't seen this active of a pattern in a while. This would be a lot to talk about. And then getting farther towards the end of the run, all of this cold air sinking into the southeast. And this latest run would potentially put some good snow into the Appalachian Mountain Range and try to put some flakes out there into the low elevation mid-Atlantic. And if we were to literally go to the end of this run, it's trying to put a clipper system down into the mid-Atlantic. Too far out, but we'll continue to watch it. I think it's interesting. I'm going to move a little bit ahead because the Euro and GFS agree pretty well on the next 5 to 6 days. It's really getting out towards the end of next week where the disagreement begins to start. Now, first off, here's our Saturday, Sunday snowstorm that the GFS sees next week. On the Euro, this air behind our low pressure system is not as cold. So this would be very cold rain, unfortunately, for a lot of us up in the northern plains and upper Midwest. And most of that snow would be falling to the north if you believe the Euro. Now, I will say a lot of times what tends to happen is you get some sort of a blend between the Euro and the GFS. I would say it's usually more towards the Euro, but sometimes the European model can be a little bit conservative with snow as well. And as this trough begins to tilt as we get into next Sunday, it does try to bring down a little bit of snow on the back end, potentially down into the Midwest here. We would really just have to see how cold that air gets. But I want you to pay attention to this. At the same exact time frame, we have a storm through the Midwest and we have cold air plummeting into the plains and out east. They agree on that. So in my head, I'm not questioning whether there's going to be a snowstorm next weekend. I think there is going to be one, but how much cold air is going to be wrapped up into this system? How amplified will this trough be? Because that will decide how far down the snow gets and how much snow we get. Interestingly enough, as we get towards Monday, November 10th, we actually see an almost nor'easter style system moving up the coast. It's a little bit far off the coast, but we do have cold air in this region, so who knows if that low pressure pushes in a little bit farther to the west. This could be a little bit more snow for New England as well. And then again, towards the end of the run, the European model does see a lot of sinking air and a storm system again moving through the Ohio Valley and out towards New England. Now, I find it hard to believe that with all of this sinking air, we wouldn't have some snow up in the Appalachian Mountain Range, and you do see some of that showing up at the end of this model. But I think if we were to see this happen, we'd actually get a decent amount of snow up and down this region here. I don't want to forget out west, but on the European model, it's pretty much the same as the GFS. Consistent moisture funneling in over the next couple of weeks. High elevation snow, low elevation rain. By the way, as I was recording this video, the 06Z GFS run came out, and it's still throwing a ton of snow into the northern plains, potentially into Minneapolis, Milwaukee, maybe even Chicago. We'll see, but I think it's interesting we're still seeing that trend there. Now, I quickly wanted to take a look ahead into November and December just to see kind of how things are shaping up. This map we're looking at right here is our CFS 500 millibar monthly anomaly, and here is December. There's a couple things to note on here. Some ridging out west and some troughing out east. I've seen a lot of people online talking about how cold December could be for the east. Now, if you're out east though and you want some big snowstorms, this may not actually support that as well as the January setup looks like it could. Our blocking isn't really set up the way we'd want it to be up to the east, and there's not much of an Alaskan ridge there to allow these storms to dive down and pull off that Gulf moisture. Watch what happens as we pull this into January. Here we go, large Alaskan ridge, and these height anomalies up here would definitely be straining that polar vortex to the north, allowing for some big breaks of the polar vortex. And guess what? We have that Greenland blocking up here as well. If we were to see this exact setup in January with where our MJO cycle could be as well, this could be an historic snow season for the mid-Atlantic and New England. Although the odds that we see this exact setup, let's be realistic, the models aren't that great. The good news is though, they're hinting at something like this, so all we can do right now is wait and see how things adapt. If I'm out east, I'm really liking how January is looking right now though. This is signaling more heat and ridging though out west for December and January. If we push a little bit farther ahead here, let's look into February. Wow, that looks cold for the east. Really, the CFS is loving the east if I'm being honest. Last but not least, we need to talk about our MJO cycle. So MJO, Madden-Julian Oscillation. This is a seasonal low pressure system that makes its way from off the eastern African coast all the way across the Pacific every about 30 to 60 days. And we're projected to begin moving into phase 7 as we get towards Thanksgiving and the beginning of December. Not only towards phase 7, but this is actually getting pretty amplified here, pretty far away from the center. So why does this matter? Well, look at phase 7. Look at phase 8. It's very cold for the states and once again favors the east. And we can actually take a look at the significance here where you see these purples, which is weird because it's the lowest significance percentage, but these are the regions that are actually affected much more by the MJO cycle. Notice in phase 7, this potentially would be the end of November towards the beginning of December. We have a lot of cold anomalies when we are in that MJO phase 7 up here through the plains and out east, and especially up in the northern plains and upper Midwest. This is pretty significantly affected by an MJO phase 7. And then as we get into phase 8, which is December, cold air favoring the east, and the MJO tends to play a big role in the mid-Atlantic and New England during phase 8 as well. So although when we were looking at our CFS monthly height anomaly, it showed potentially not as active of a storm pattern for December out east, I'm taking a look at our MJO cycles and saying maybe we do see some decent snow out east in December. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to throw me a follow or sub. I make posts like this every day, and I try and stream at least 5 days a week to answer all of your weather-related questions. I will be hopping on stream right after this, so if you want to ask me any forecasting questions, hop in there and ask away. I'll see you in the next stream or in the next video.